Welcome to this week's Coffee and Chats with myself, Adam, and Kels. And these are just open conversations that we have together around behaviour, mindset, habits, and all of those good things which can help people move forwards when it comes to their health, their wellness, their life, and everything else. So today we are going to be speaking about environment. Now, we're not talking about what's going on out there, but the environment that is around us and that we find ourselves sat in, working in, living in, being surrounded by as well the people that are surrounding us as well. So Kels is going to jump straight in and she's just going to give her she's just start a conversation and give her little opinion on this topic.
Little opinion.
Little opinion.
Hopefully it's more than that. But Adam and I decided to talk about this today simply from a swimming pool session yesterday. And that was with my daughter and her friend who she's met here. She's come on holiday and she's actually a little bit older than Reese. And when did they arrive? They arrived last week. So over the last three to 5 days, they've been like swimming in the afternoons together. Now, the first thing a lot of people say when they come over on holiday and see our kids is that they're really confident swimmers. Now, we're in that fortunate position where our environment is the fact that we have the pool, we have access to it daily. So, of course, the repetition of being able to access it daily has them being confident, jumping in, diving in, swimming. Even our 3-year-old, he'll do that just as well. But it was a particular comment yesterday that stood out for both myself and Ads from this little girl's granddad, who just came out with it and said, Isla has come along in the last 3 to 5 days with her swimming in confidence more than I've seen in the last 2 years with her swim teacher. And that was like a profound statement. And our daughter Reese, who's actually younger than her, wow, mummy, did you hear that? And straight away, Adam and I were just like, look at that. That is the impact. That is the power of environment. That is the power of surrounding yourself with people who are doing what you want to do or ahead of you, because that's just going to bring you up because you see them. So it gives you that confidence. It gives you that little boost of encouragement, like, hey, if they can, I can. So, of course, it's like 10x her results because she has access to this pool every single day while she's here on holiday. And then having the afternoons with this, you're doing it. Our little one's like, yeah, come on, doing it. And repetition with someone who's already there. The results speak for themselves. And Ad knows about this as well. Obviously, he's seen this since he's come back from the UK. But Ad as well, what's your take on it, especially from going back to the UK last week, speaking on a panel? How did that affect, improve things for you?
Yeah, that's a really important question. It's a really good question as well. But before we move on, it's like let's actually look at Reese, right? Look at the swimming and all of that. Like Isla and Reese, Isla's learning so much from Reese because she's seeing Reese, who's similar height to her, similar age, and she's seeing Reese do flips, diving in, having the confidence just to be in the deep end, without any armbands or anything like that. And it's just like, oh, yeah. And, it's not only that as well. It's that Reese is basically teaching her, isn't she? She's actually telling, no,
without
don't stand this.
teaching.
Yeah, no, she's teaching without teaching. But Reese is like, oh, no, do it like this. She's seeing Isla do something, or jump in a certain way. It's like, oh, no, yeah, like do it this way next time. So she's giving her that feedback. She's giving her, that constructive criticism, which not only is going to help Isla, but it also helps Reese, because Reese, it's what we say to the guys in our Back in Charge blueprint, isn't it? When we have like the group calls, is that, it not only does it help the person that's getting the feedback, but it's also helping Reese give, because she's not going to tell her to do something that she's not going to do herself to make her better. So that is what also helps. It helps both those people, because now Reese is going to be like telling Isla, no, you do it like this. But then at the same time, she's like, well, I need to make sure I'm doing that. And it just reinforces that behavior and the habit within Reese to then actually make her do it. Make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Like we're seeing it, we're visibly seeing it. And even, like I said, Isla's dad, who you'd agree is a little bit more nervous about it, which often is the way, right? Which is why, as well, with environment, it's like so important being around those who are where you want to be and have done it, because it's like, hey, it's okay. Because as a parent, you are naturally like, oh, a bit nervous, oh, a bit more protective, which in some ways it's natural. We do it, but also it can have a negative impact in that you're holding them back from their potential because of your
beliefs
fears and reservations.
That's it, right? Your fears and your beliefs. So yeah.
Sometimes when you're in that pool of people already there, they're like, you're fine to feel nervous, but go.
Yeah, that's it. And then moving on, like, I was in London last week. From our conversation last week, I was actually in London when we had it. And it was great because, like, I love where we live. We live at an amazing place in Cyprus. We've got the sea view, we've got blue skies, we've got the swimming pools, we've got all of that, every tick box going, right, that people want. But when I was in London last week, it was just different, because there's an energy there. There's right, let's do stuff, let's collaborate. I was walking through London on the way to the event, and just seeing people coming out from restaurants together that was a business lunch, people in the coffee shops, talking, people meeting and all of that. Like, I walk past some buildings and there was a couple of people waiting downstairs, and then someone walks out, and then they're there to have a meeting, and they're to collaborate. And even after the event that I spoke at, people didn't leave because they wanted to ask questions. They wanted to learn. They wanted to do that. They wanted to, help each other and just grow. And that's something as well that's really, really important, is the people that you're surrounded by. Are they going to be the ones that are going to be pushing you forwards and making you strive? Or are they the ones that are going to be holding you back and pulling you down? And that's another thing you've got to be careful of, right? Is the people around you. Like, Kels, like, what's your take? Again, because it's a little bit harder for you, like, just where I'm, in it all the time, and you're looking from the outside currently, because you've been holding the fort at home with the kids and the house and all of that. But what's your take from looking outside in?
What do you mean outside in? From what you going there?
Yeah, like from me going away. Yeah, like from me going away, and also with what I said as well, is about being in that environment of people that are going to be, making you strive, making you grow.
Yeah, I think it's not like, maybe you should. I think it's essential. If you have goals that you want to achieve and they're important to you, they're meaningful to you, and it can change the trajectory of your life, it's not even like, it shouldn't just be a thought of maybe someday, or I should do that. I was watching a podcast last week, and they're like, one of the things as well, as much as your environment, is the power of your language. And he's saying how if you change the word should to must, there's like a force behind it. Because if you're like, I must do that, that's like get up, get after it. Whereas if you should, it's like, I should, but then I can also put it in a box, park it, and forget about it.
Yeah, I should do it, but I'm not. Whereas, well,
my little one, I should go shop. I must go shop.
Should go shop. Exactly, right. And that's the thing.
But like, are you asking that? Yeah, it is essential. And I think as well, though, that it's like I don't even like to say the word balance, because I think I'd rather use the word seasons. There's always going to be seasons for people, where there's seasons where they're striving for the goals, And that's the important phase. So you have to be in that season. Like I never really think like there's a balance. There's just, that's the season you're after. And then perhaps when you've hit that goal, you can take your foot off the gas a bit, because we can't always be going and striving, because that will lead to collapse.
No, that'll be out of balance, right? But the thing is, like, you will have that, you can get balance in those seasons of growth, of striving, of slowing down. You can have balance, but it will just look different. No, it will look different.
No, it's okay to disagree.
Yeah. No. What I'm saying is, like, you're saying that you can't have balance, but you can have balance. It's just it will look different.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, I think also going off topic from environment, that's the importance of, guys, just be a little bit quieter. It's the power of communication with your team or your people or your family about where you are, what you want, and what you need to do to get there. So it's a lot of things, really. It's communication, environment as well, and then awareness to both of those things. Because like with you last week, going there, like, you've got these goals, you know what's next. So going there and being in that environment was just what was needed. But then also as well, it's going in there, isn't it? Being in that energy and then being able to step out of it to have like the space to then create the next step.
So let's look at this then, right? So we've got that awareness then, right, about the environment is important, right? Like we've identified that you've got to be in the right environment for you to then grow, to progress, to win, right? So then what would you say then for someone that isn't in there, that they're starting to become aware that they're not in the right environment currently, but they know they need to change? Like, what would be the first thing that person can do to then start to move them forwards?
So I think the first thing is like, identify the goals. What is it you want? What is it you really want to achieve? What's important to you? Okay. And then the next thing is look at where that's happening. Look at where those goals are being created and happening with ease, fun, and speed. So, okay, well, where I know this is what I want, that I'm not in the right place, but where do I know? So then start looking for those sources, for those communities, for those spaces / places. And it could be like, for us at first, because obviously we're in Cyprus, it's like looking at it online is always a good. So, if you can't physically be there, search for it online first, because online is how you can form good, solid connections. We are living proof of that. Then you form those connections, which lead to conversations. And then the conversations give questions. Okay, so this is what I want. I'm seeing this is what you're doing. Extracting, gathering information, and then you can start to plan how it can move you forwards. How can I get there? And it might be, if you are at a distant space, like Adam and myself are, it's like, okay, you might not be able to be there all the time, but what do you have that I could come to? And you can start there, can't you? So for me, it'd be identify the goal you want, then find sources or communities of where that's happening and get yourself in there.
Whether it be like a one-day event or an evening or a webinar or a workshop or something like that. It's a bit like with what we're doing next week, with the workshop, for people that have noticed that, their health starting to slip, and it's having an impact on their health, their energy, their performance, their resilience, and all of that at work. And they notice that they're starting to slip. It's like, well, instead of you just jumping straight into the program, it's like, well, come along to our workshop where you can experience it, actually get something from it. And then that's the first step for that person.
Yeah. And experience, get some clarity on it, get a better understanding. Be like, oh, okay, I didn't know that, but that makes a bit of sense. Because again, right, you come there and that allows you to get some more insight, which gives you more questions. I always say questions are the answer.
That's it. Nice. Nice. So I think we're going to wrap it up there. Bang on the 15-minute mark. We're going to wrap it up there. So again, it's been a nice short one today, just talking about the environment and how that plays an impact in your growth and your progression. Make sure that you get in the right circles. Make sure you're surrounded by people doing what you want to do. Just confirming, like, Reese and Isla. Isla wants to improve her swimming, so she's going to be swimming with Reese, who's a good swimmer. She's going to be getting some advice from it. Look at that. Within a week, she's improved. Boom. That's what it is. Getting in places which actually make you grow, which makes you get the energy. That was for me going back to London last week. Just being in and around London, it actually gets you a little bit more hungrier. Getting back into those workspaces, if you work from home, being around those people is actually going to make you more productive and all that. Okay. And also source it out. Look where you want to get to and where can I find people, communities, environments that are pushing forwards. So that's a great way to finish it. So guys, this is the end of today's Coffee and Chats. If you want to catch up on any of our previous episodes, then please go to our YouTube channel or send me and Kels a message and we can send you the links ourselves. And until next time, we'll speak to you soon.